first chilling account comes from Kyle, a 28-year-old former Uber driver from the quiet, expansive landscapes of Ohio. His story speaks to a different kind of passenger, one who leaves no trace, yet leaves an indelible mark on the soul. I used to drive for Uber part-time, mostly at night. It just made more sense. Better surge pricing, fewer headaches with traffic. Plus, there was a certain solitude to it, just me and the hum of the engine, the glow of the GPS. This particular night, it was late last fall, sometime around 2 a.m., the kind of deep, oppressive darkness you only get out in the countryside. I got a ping to pick someone up from a closed diner, way out off a rural exit just outside Columbus. No streetlights, just the inky blackness punctuated by distant, indistinguishable shapes. Cornfields stretched out on all sides, a vast, silent ocean, and that heavy, still kind of dark that seemed to absorb all sound. I pulled into the cracked, overgrown parking lot. It was utterly deserted. The diner itself was a dark, hulking silhouette against the faint glow of the distant city, its windows like vacant eyes. No one there, just the empty building, the ghost of a forgotten business. I waited 5 minutes, then 10. My internal clock was ticking. Something felt off. Then a sharp digital ping. Ride canceled. Weird. I thought I was about to shift into drive, already mentally calculating my next move when another request popped up. My eyes narrowed. Same pickup point, same name. Emily. I accepted. I honestly don't know why. Maybe I thought it was a system glitch, a delayed re-request, or just my tired brain playing tricks. Part of me, the part that rationalizes the strange, just wanted to complete the trip and get home. But this time, when I looked up from my phone, there she was, standing about 20 feet ahead on the shoulder of the road, just outside the diner's reach. No flashlight, no car nearby, no sign of how she'd gotten there. Just standing, like she'd materialized from the mist. Her figure was indistinct in the gloom, a shadow among shadows. She moved with an unnerving grace, a fluid, almost noiseless approach. She got in, sliding into the middle seat directly behind me. The car dipped slightly with her weight, a subtle confirmation of her presence. She said nothing. The air in the car thick and grew heavy. I tried to break the silence. Emily, right? Where are we headed? My voice sounded a little too loud in the sudden quiet. She whispered, a sound so faint it was barely audible, like a breath against glass. Home. I checked the app. Destination was already set. 10 miles down a winding, unlit back road that snaked deeper and deeper into nowhere. The GPS lines seemed to unravel into the darkness ahead. The entire drive I could feel her. Her presence was a tangible thing, a prickling sensation on the back of my neck. I adjusted the rearview mirror, trying to catch her reflection, trying to see her. But every single time I looked up, she wasn't there. Just empty seat, the faded upholstery of my backseat, a silent expanse. But I felt her. The inexplicable weight on the suspension, the way the car felt subtly different, heavier. I could almost perceive her breath, shallow and damp, a delicate mist, like someone trying desperately not to be noticed. It was a suffocating sensation, like being watched by something that didn't want to be seen. Then, about halfway there, the road a ribbon of blackness through the silent cornfields. She spoke again. Her voice was the same whisper, but it seemed to fill the car, resonating in my bones. Do you see her? I nearly jumped out of my skin. My heart hammered against my ribs. See who? I asked, my voice cracking slightly. No answer, only that chilling silence, amplifying the thrumming of the engine. I glanced in the mirror again, a quick, almost involuntary reflex. And for just a fraction of a second, a fleeting, impossible image. There was someone else, a second woman, sitting right behind me, right next to where Emily should have been, but wasn't. Her eyes were wide, dilated, staring directly into mine. Her mouth, it was open, stretched wide in a silent scream, contorted in an agony I could almost feel, but there was no sound. Only the terrifying image burned into my retina. I whipped my head around. My neck protested. No one. My neck protested. The backseat was empty, the shadows playing tricks, the mundane reality of my car a sudden, stark relief. I slammed on the brakes. The car lurched to a halt, tires kicking up gravel. The backseat, empty, utterly, completely empty. And the ride had disappeared from the app, vanished. As if it had never existed. I sat there, engine idling, for what felt like an eternity, but was probably 10 minutes, my hands locked on the steering wheel, shaking uncontrollably. my breath hitched in my throat. I tried to rationalize its sleep deprivation and overactive imagination, the late hour. But the sheer terror I felt was real. Then I just drove. I drove home, a phantom weight still in my backseat. The image of the second woman's silent scream burned into my mind. I deleted the app the next morning, the digital echo of that night too much to bear. Weeks later, the memory still nagging at me. I found myself driving past that diner again in broad daylight. It was still closed, still deserted, still wearing that same air of forgottenness. But now there was something else. A weathered wooden cross crudely fashioned by the side of the road close to where I'd first seen her. It read, "In memory of Emily, 1999-2019. The blood drained from my face. Emily had died 5 years ago." Our next account, submitted by Naomi, a 33-year-old from the vast, often isolated landscapes of Nevada, takes us into the unsettling territory of human horror, where the most frightening monsters wear human skin and the familiar becomes terrifyingly alien. This was last winter. I was flying home from Reno, a business trip that had run late, compounded by a delayed flight. I landed well after midnight. Snow was coming down hard, a thick swirling curtain of white that made the airport feel even more desolate. The thought of waiting in the cold for a cab or wrestling with airport shuttles was just unbearable. So, as I always did, I called an Uber. The guy's name was Mitch. His profile picture looked normal enough. An older guy, salt and pepper hair, a faint, almost imperceptible smile. And a reassuring 5 stars, hundreds of rides completed. Black SUV, the kind that looks solid and reliable. He pulled up quickly, a dark shape materializing out of the swirling snow, not bothering to roll down the window. Just a quick flash of the headlights, and then the familiar click as the doors unlocked. I got in, pulling my carry-on bag in after me, shrugging off the lingering chill of the night. He didn't say anything at first, didn't even glance in the rearview mirror. Just put the car in drive and pulled smoothly away from the curb. No music, no small talk, nothing. The silence in the car was profound, broken only by the muffled hum of the engine and the soft swish of the wipers against the accumulating snow. His hands were stiff on the wheel, white-knuckled, and he kept staring straight ahead. His gaze was fixed, unmoving, piercing the darkness of the night, but not in the normal way. He didn't blink, at all, not once. I watched him in the rearview mirror, subtly at first, then more openly. His eyes were wide, unblinking, fixed on the road, almost unnervingly still. It was like looking at a mannequin or a photograph. The longer I looked, the more unsettling it became. My own eyes started to water in sympathy. I tried to break the silence again. "Hey, how are the roads tonight? Hey, how are the roads tonight? Looks like it's coming down pretty hard." My voice felt thin, swallowed by the unnatural quiet. He didn't respond. No twitch of a muscle, no acknowledgement. Just kept driving, those unblinking eyes focused straight ahead. Then I noticed we were not on the right road. My place was 20 minutes west of the airport, a straightforward drive. We were heading distinctly north. Deeper into the hills where the streetlights grew sparser and the houses became more isolated. My stomach tightened. I said, "Hey, I think we're off-road. My place is still nothing." His profile remained perfectly still. No indication he'd even heard me. I checked the app. It was glitching. The little car icon wasn't moving. The GPS stuck, a faint gray line where the route should have been. No signal either. My heart began to pound a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I started to panic, a cold wave washing over me despite the warmth of the car. I said louder this time, my voice trembling, "Mitch, where are you taking me? This isn't the right way." And he finally spoke. His voice was calm, almost emotionless, flat, devoid of any discernible inflection. "I'm not Mitch," and my blood went cold. A visceral primal fear seized me. Every hair on my arm stood on end. The air in the car suddenly felt suffocating, heavy with menace. I reached for the door handle. It was locked. I tried again, yanking harder, but it wouldn't budge. I fumbled for my phone, desperately trying to call 911, but the screen just showed no service. I was trapped. And then he started laughing. Not loud, not boisterous, just this slow, shaking breath kind of laugh. A dry, rasping sound that seemed to come from deep within him, like a mechanism grinding, like he was enjoying my fear, savoring it. It was the most chilling sound I have ever heard. Just as the laughter reached a crescendo, we hit a patch of black ice. The SUV fishtailed violently, swaying from side to side like a boat caught in a storm. He slammed the brakes hard and we skidded, completely out of control, careening off the road and into a deep snowbank. The impact was jarring, throwing me forward against the seatbelt, but it wasn't a violent crash, more like a soft, muffled thud. I didn't wait. My mind was already racing, adrenaline surging through my veins. I unbuckled the seatbelt in one desperate movement, my fingers fumbling with the clasp. Then I kicked the door once, twice with all my might. The latch groaned, then snapped, and the door burst open, a cold gust of snowy wind rushing in. I scrambled out, half falling, half crawling, and ran into the woods, plunging through the deep snow. I didn't stop, didn't look back, didn't pause for breath. The branches of the pine trees scratched at my face, the snow soaked my clothes, but I just kept running, the haunting echo of his laughter pursuing me through the silent wood. I didn't stop until I burst out onto a main road, gasping for air, and saw the glorious sight of headlights in the distance, a plow truck, its yellow lights blinking through the snowfall. The guy driving it was a grizzled old man. He saw my terrified face, my disheveled appearance, and didn't hesitate. He called the cops, letting me sit in his warm cab, shivering, trying to articulate the horror I'd just experienced. When they got back to where the SUV had gone into the snowbank, he was gone. No tire tracks leading away, no footprints in the pristine, freshly fallen snow other than my own ragged trail. Just my bag lying neatly in the snow and the impression, a perfect undisturbed outline of where the car had been. It was as if it had simply dissolved into the air. When I finally managed to check the Uber app later, after the police had taken my statement and tried to make sense of my wild story, there was no trip history, no record of a ride, no record of a driver named Mitch. It was as if that hour of terror had never happened, a phantom memory. And when I looked closer at the profile picture that had initially seemed so normal, that faint, almost imperceptible smile, I realized something I hadn't noticed in my initial hurried glance, something that would haunt my nightmares for years to come. The face, it had no eyes, just black empty sockets, like two voids staring out from the digital screen, reflecting nothing, seeing everything. Our final story, shared by Daniel, a 41-year-old from the soulful, misty landscapes of Louisiana, delves into a different kind of darkness, one infused with sorrow, memory, and an unexpected, otherworldly kindness. It's a tale that suggests some connections transcend the living world and some farewells are not as final as they seem. It was my sister's funeral. Allison, the words still catch in my throat. She died in a car accident, head-on collision with a drunk driver. The kind of senseless tragedy that rips a family apart. She was only 34, vibrant, full of life, and then gone. Just like that. I flew in from Atlanta, landed late, as usual, the flight a blur of grief and exhaustion. I called an Uber to take me directly to the funeral home. I didn't want to bother my family, who were already overwhelmed, and I just needed a quiet moment, a space to prepare myself before facing everyone. The car that picked me up was an old Crown Vic, not the usual Uber vehicle you see these days. No shiny new sedan, no distinct Uber decals on the windows, no overwhelming smell of air freshener trying to mask something, just clean, utterly empty save for the driver, and quiet, a profound, almost sacred quiet. The driver was a woman. Pale, her face etched with a subtle weariness that seemed to run deeper than mere fatigue. Her hair was pulled back neatly, revealing a high forehead and intelligent, thoughtful eyes. She looked tired, yes, but her expression held a strange, comforting kindness. I gave her the name of the funeral home, the address already in the app, but I spoke it aloud just to be sure. She simply nodded, a gentle acknowledgement, and pulled away from the curb. We didn't talk much, and that was fine. More than fine, actually. The drive was weirdly peaceful, a quiet balm to my raw nerves. There was no traffic, even though it was a main thoroughfare. Every single light we approached turned green, almost as if the road itself was clearing a path for us. It felt purposeful. At one point, as we drove through a particularly beautiful, tree-lined street, a fleeting thought crossed my mind. I voiced it without thinking. "You know," I said, looking at her reflection in the rear view, "you've got an old soul vibe about you, a very calming presence." She laughed softly, a gentle melodic sound that seemed to carry the weight of years. She said, "I've been doing this a long time." Her eyes met mine in the mirror for a moment, and there was a depth to them, a sadness that mirrored my own, yet also a profound understanding. But then a prickle of unease started to surface. A small, rational part of my brain, despite my grief-addled state, began to question things. The ride had started without a notification. I realized no app chime, no digital voice announcing your ride has begun, no fare countdown ticking away. I pulled out my phone. The screen glowed faintly in the dim interior. My Uber app was open, but there was no active trip, no record of a ride in progress. It was as if I hadn't booked anything at all. I looked at her reflection in the mirror again, a new kind of question in my voice. "Hey," I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. Did the ride start? My app's not showing anything. She looked at me through the rearview mirror. Her eyes were glassy, not with tears, but with a soft, ethereal glow. They seemed to hold a vast, timeless empathy. She said, her voice gentle and unwavering, and we're almost there. And indeed we were. We pulled up smoothly to the grand old funeral home. Its lights were a beacon in the falling dusk. My cousin Mark was standing outside, pacing, waiting for me. He looked worried. I turned in my seat to say thank you to the driver, to offer a tip, to somehow express my gratitude for the strange, quiet journey. But the driver was gone. The door on her side was shut. The engine was off. No one behind the wheel. The car was utterly still. I looked again, and the car wasn't even on. No faint hum of an engine, no dashboard lights glowing, no keys in the ignition, no sound at all. Just an empty car. I stepped out, my mind reeling, trying to process the impossibility of it. My cousin saw me, his face breaking into relief, and he ran up, enveloping me in a tight, comforting hug. He said, his voice laced with concern, "Dad, we were worried sick. You weren't answering your phone. You weren't in the arrival logs for your flight. We thought something terrible had happened." I turned around, trying to point to the car, to show him the impossible vehicle, to explain what had just transpired, but it was already pulling away, slowly, silently, no license plate, no Uber sticker, just taillights, fading into the mist that was now beginning to swirl around the funeral home, dissolving into the fading light of the evening. A week later, back home in Atlanta, the funeral a somber memory, I still found myself obsessing over that strange ride. I checked my Uber ride history, meticulously scrolling through every past trip, just to confirm what I already knew. There was no trip logged for that night, no record of a pickup, no drop-off, nothing. But then, almost hidden amidst countless 5-star ratings I had given, there was a review I never left. A single, solitary 5-star rating logged on the night of my arrival. The comment section, which I never bothered with, just said, "A thank you for being there, hey?" My sister's name was Allison. Sometimes the road brings us closer to something we can't explain. A place between here and somewhere else. A thin veil between the living and the departed. These stories, shared by those who lived them, remind us that the everyday can become extraordinary and the mundane can harbor the truly terrifying. If you've ever had a terrifying Uber experience, supernatural or otherwise, a moment on the road that left you questioning reality, let us know in the comments below. We're listening, and remember, next time you get in a stranger's car, check the rearview mirror. You never know who's really in the backseat.